give my testimony on what I would have experienced in this COVID era. Like Nurse Anna said, I was one of the volunteers in the first wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. Just as it came on stream, I joined the COVID team on the 24th of March, 2020. And I stayed on the team right up until that first team would have dissolved on the 30th of June, round about that time. And it was truly a eye-opener and a new experience. Having been a registered nurse for the past 28 years, I have never experienced anything like that first wave or the wave of this entire pandemic, basically. But that first wave, that was really what we call a culture shock, because in all my years of nursing, I've never seen a condition wipe persons out as quickly as the COVID-19 virus would do. Persons would come in and within a matter of a day or two, sometime within a matter of they're dead. And the unit had to get counted. And I know the third wave, as many cases, nor did we have as many deaths as what we are seeing here today. I frequent social media and I see a lot of talks of, oh, the COVID-19 is not real. And there's a whole gamut of stuff out there. But I come by to let you know that COVID-19 is real and it kills. I say this condition did not come to debilitate, it came to kill. That's me sharing from a personal aspect, because at the end of it, I developed COVID-19. I became positive approximately 2 months after I would have left the COVID center. While I was in the center, I was good. I wore all my gears and I came into contact with patients that were very ill and I was fine. It was when you get out in the ward setting and to a certain extent, you kind of let your guard down, or you look at persons and you say, oh, well, it's probably just another sick person, not knowing that the individual would have had COVID or their signs and symptoms was their medical condition complicated by the COVID-19. And so I caught COVID while on the ward nursing a patient, and it's like I knew the very second that I would have encountered the virus, my body was not the same. My symptoms were different from the symptoms that we've been hearing. You know, a lot of people say, oh, it's like the flu-like symptoms, and everybody have different kind of symptoms, because when I initially got it, it started with me as a headache. And this headache was very strange because it started at the crown of my head, not around the temple. It was excruciating pain from time to time. And it's like I encountered my patient about a week before I started feeling symptoms. I would say 5 to 7 days after I would have encountered that patient, my symptoms began. And like I said, I almost knew the second that my body would have encountered it, because this patient was doing a whole lot of coughing. And here it is, I had on my N95 mask, I had on my gown, I had on my gloves. However, my eyes were free. I did not have on a shield. like I say, you take some things for granted, and I didn't wear a shield with that patient because I was like, oh, we didn't know her to have COVID. But as she coughed, and she was a patient that was very needy, so you had to basically do everything for her, and in terms of lifting and turning, and I felt anymore. And from that encounter, the headaches started. After the headaches, I started getting sharp pains to my chest that would radiate directly to my back. My first thought, oh my God, I'm having a heart attack. But the pains were short-lived, but they came rather frequently. So I was like, wait a minute, a headache on the crown of my head. Now these sharp pains from the front of my chest radiating directly to the back. And then with that came a cough. The cough was not very prominent, so I didn't really pay it any mind to say, oh, yeah, you're sick. But the cough would come and go. And it happened mostly when I would go to bed. My children would get up in the middle of the night and say, Mommy, why are you coughing so much? And I didn't realize the extent of the cough until about 2 days in. And I still only had the cough at nights. During the day, I was fine. But yet the pains in my chest started to worsen. And I was like, you know what? I think I need to go and see a doctor because these pains are not normal. But it worked out where we found out that that patient was positive. And after we found out that she was positive, you know, the contact tracing began. And I was traced and linked directly to that patient. And so I was placed in quarantine for 14 days. That was the intent, to go in quarantine for 14 days to watch my symptoms. So I went in quarantine, and you know that is quarantine. Let me share a little on quarantine. Quarantine is very difficult when you do not live alone. You live in a home where you have kids, and at the time I had a 2-month grandbaby in my house. So, and she was one that never came out of my bed. So I'm like, okay, how do I do this with my grandbaby in the house? So the day I was placed on quarantine, mind you, the day before I was taking care of her. But the very next day that I realized that, you know what, something is definitely not right with me. And at that time, I still didn't know that I was COVID positive. I said, something is not right. So I made an attempt to fully quarantine myself from my family. So to my advantage, I had my own space at the back of my home, my own bedroom, my own bath. So I didn't have to go out into the house to mingle with my children. So I stayed in quarantine, and it's like every day the symptoms got worse and worse and worse. And it was exactly a week after I was placed in quarantine that I was swabbed and tested. A PCR test was done, and I, at that point, tested positive for the COVID-19. But at that point, I knew I had it then, because within that first week, like I said, the symptoms just got worse and worse and worse, because it moved from the headache to the chest pain to the coughing to a fever that I just could not break. And I mean, I popped Panadols every couple of minutes just to keep the bad feelings down from the fever. And when I say fever, I'm not talking about a low-grade fever. I'm talking about 103. At one point, I saw 104. I was like, oh my God, this is bad. This is really bad. I need to get some medication on board, because here it is. I was placed in quarantine, not being seen by anybody, sent home with just Panadols and to watch and report my symptoms. Anyway, I think because of my background knowledge as a nurse, I knew that something was not right, and I needed to get medication. I needed to get some treatment on board. And then I started asking questions because the quarantine team, they kept calling and checking in on me. And their main concern was my temperature in terms of me having a fever. And I had the fever, like I said, from the day I went on quarantine, the fever started. And every morning they would tell me, check it every morning and every evening. And every day the fever would get worse and worse. And like I said, thank God for good old Panadols, because it came a point where a cold shower could not work because with the fever came fatigue. When I say fatigue, I don't mean just a bad feeling or a bad day. I mean fatigue to the point where you are unable to get up and even perform self-caring duties. It was so bad. Only thing I wanted to do was lay down in the bed. And at one point I was like, are these my final days for how bad I felt? But I can tell you, thank God for prayer and a praying mother, because even though I was homesick in quarantine, my mother came to my house every day. And she would stand at the door and she would pray for me, and she would just cover me with the blood and send the angels of protection and healing over me. And I would lay in the bed, like I say, so fatigued, I just didn't have the strength to get up and do anything. My children would leave my meals at the door on the bureau and they would run basically because they were afraid of like my oldest girl say, whatever you got, you keep that in the back there. And she meant that, but I know she meant it in love because there was nothing that I called for that I didn't get. So she would always tell me, whatever that is going on in the back there, you keep that in the back there, because ain't nobody get time for that. So like I said, I really wrestled with the COVID, and every day it got worse and worse. And I say, okay, 2 weeks in, I'm like, okay, I should start to feel a little bit better now. I've been down for 2 weeks, and yet the fatigue got worse. I was like, what next, Lord? What next? And thank God I know how to pray, because there were many days I lie in the bed and I could feel the fever coming on. And the first line of defense for a fever or treatment for a fever would be to go and catch a cold shower or let the water run on you. And as you can see, my hair is bald, so I could shower from head to toe, and that's the perfect remedy in trying to break a fever. I didn't have strength to do that. So the Panadols, the cold water, and it's like the bed was my best friend, because I just couldn't do it. I didn't have the strength. And like I said, eventually the symptoms just keep getting worse and worse. So the chest pains, in about the 3rd week in, the chest pains got worse. The chest pains got so bad to the point where I started to feel shortness of breath. But one good thing, like I said, because of my knowledge as a nurse, I sent for a tank of oxygen. I sent for a mask. And I said, I am going to beat this, and I am not going to the hospital. That was my mantra. I promised myself I am not going to the hospital, because I worked the COVID center. I know the dynamics of the hospital, and I promised that I was not going there. So anything I needed to do to stay home and to stay well and safe, I tried. Vitamins was key. The zinc, the vitamin C, the multivitamins, like I said, the Panadols. I did get a course of antibiotics because I called up a doctor and I was like, you know what? I've got COVID and I need a course of antibiotics, but not everybody have that opportunity or have that window to call up somebody and say, oh, I need a prescription. But I took my course of antibiotics. I intensified the Panadol. So instead of taking the Panadols every 4 hours, I was popping them like every 2 to 3 hours just to keep the fever down before it got bad. Because it's like when the fever came, chills came, the fatigue got worse. And at one point, my daughter was like, one of my daughters was like, Mommy, I don't know what's going on with you, but you need to get up out of here. You need to get up and get well because I don't like what I seeing and you ain't going nowhere. And listen here, she spoke life to me. She spoke life to me. So family support is so important. And like I said, my mother never stopped coming. And she came and she would bring her bush tea and fever grass tea. And listen, I had it all. I had it all. And my mommy, no, I do not like hot tea. I'm not a hot tea drinker. I'm an ice eater. So I like everything cold. And so when my mother brought the gallon of fever grass tea, my daughter then turned it into iced tea for me. So they were serving me the fever grass tea as iced tea. And not only the fever grass, but the pine cone, not the cones, the pine leaf tea. And listen, those were the best teas I ever had. And like I say, yeah, I drank them cold, but it was then that I started to feel a little bit better. And then when I looked a month in, and I'm still fatigued. And I'm like, wow, when is it going to ease up? When is it going to go away? What's happening? So the progression of this condition is rapid, recovery is slow. I admonish you guys to take this condition serious. This did not come to debilitate. This came to kill. It is very slow, like I said, in its progression, and even the healing process. I was off from work for 7 weeks. Unheard of, other than when I had my kids. I was like, what is this? And so that to me, that was apart from just working with the COVID patients, yeah, to work with patients and to see what they go through is one thing, but to experience the dynamics of that condition and to see what they went through, I said to myself, I say, thank God I don't have all those underlying conditions because I don't know if I would have survived COVID-19. I really don't know because that for a person who I consider, yeah, I'm a little bit on the heavy side, but I consider myself in pretty good condition because I don't have any underlying health issues, and that served me a blow. So I admonish you guys to take this condition serious, to wear your mask. I get to the point where I don't even purchase the fancy mask. I strictly deal with surgical and N95s because I don't even trust the fancy ones. I don't trust them, point blank. And when you go into these forums, like all these rallies and things that are going on, oh my God, take care of yourselves. Persons are dying and they're dying quickly. And I'm talking about relatively well persons. So this COVID-19 is really something to take serious and to take care of yourself because at the end of the day is how you take care of yourself, which determines how well you will stand up to a condition.
Thank you very much, Nurse Patrice Hunt, for sharing with us. And so you heard it from the horse's mouth. COVID is nothing to play with. It is no joke. It is no conspiracy theory. It is real. But I have a question for her. And the question is, after you recovered, and you heard it took her 7 weeks, that's why we are wanting you to take care of yourself. When we get sick, we out of there. So you depleting an already short pool of nurses and other healthcare workers when we get sick. That's 7 weeks for one nurse. Times that by 5 or whatever number. So we are pleading with you. Oh Lord, that's why we're having this, because we believe that things could be better. Things could be improved if we do the necessary things. So Patrice, but after you got well, what did you do afterwards? You talk about prayer and how your mom prayed. You talk about faith in God, and truly God brought you through. But what did you do? What did you find yourself that was necessary to do in order to lessen your chance of getting COVID a second time?
Well, after I basically caught it in the second wave. Now, the second wave to me wasn't even as bad as this third wave. But after I came around, I saw the importance of truly taking care of yourself and eating well, eating right as much as possible. I know we tend to truck a little bit, and soon as the vaccine came on board, initially when the vaccine came, of course, I was a little bit hesitant because I'm like, hey, this is something new. Has it been tried long enough? I don't want to be no guinea pig. Oh, those were all my sentiments. And after I realized, I went back to work, and who you think I went and worked with? COVID patients. So I'm like, you know what, Patrice? You're gonna have to make a decision. You can't run from it. It's in your face. You have not a choice. This is what I do for a living. I have to work. I am now fully vaccinated, and I have been for a while. And I saw that to be very important, of high importance, because you don't know, the Delta strand is here now. You don't know what other strand is coming.
They tell me they have something called mute. So another strain is it's out there.
So my thing is, I prefer to take the advice of the physicians and the persons who know how to deal with vaccines and know the importance of it and the ramifications of it. I prefer to take that chance, and I took that chance, and I'm fully vaccinated. And all along I was saying, oh, I'm waiting for another alternative, the Pfizer or the Moderna. But guess what? I say, you know what? I am still working with COVID patients. I don't know when Pfizer and Moderna was gonna come. And trust me, by the time they came, I was already fully vaccinated. And I still work with COVID patients. And I still wear all my gear, and I take good care of myself. I still use all my precautions, my mask, whatever it is that is required of me to do, that will I do. Because I want to live at the end of the day. I want to see my kids successful. I want to see my grandchildren. I want to live. And that's the mantra of all of us. We want to live. But if you want to live, you need to do the necessary things that will protect you and that will enable you to do so. So like I say, I am fully vaccinated. And if they tell me I need to take a booster, then I can take that booster. I am so sorry.
Amen.
They can call me the guinea pig, but I am going to do what I need to do, because at the end of the day, I want to protect myself and I want to live.
Thank you very much, Nurse Patrice. Thank you very much for coming, for taking the time to share with us. And I'm hoping those out there who are listening, you're getting the message. You're getting the message loud and clear. We are out there. We ain't telling no fables. We are telling you the truth. And wherever you find the information and you can use it so that you don't have to get COVID. Because I believe with all my heart, we don't have to have the many cases that we are having. We don't have to have the deaths that we are having. But there's too much non-compliance. On my way here, my heart was broken. I encountered Riley, and listen to me, there were hundreds of people out there, and there was only one person, you hear me? One person had on an N95 mask and was wearing it properly. All the others, they had on a cloth mask and the mask was on not properly. Some had it under here, some had it like this. Some had none at all. Hundreds of people, one person. Listen to me, my heart was broken. Some of them, I was sitting there, I said, put the mask on. You know, I was just, because all I am saying is next week, numbers. So right. Please, ladies, please, you want to celebrate, but that's a high intense activity. When we talk about the mask, they should have had on a surgical mask and a cloth mask over that. The cloth mask they were wearing has no filter in it. So it's based in, simply put, there was only one person on with a mask. The rest of them had no mask on. That's a no, no, no. So we're just hoping the message can get through and we can do the things to keep ourselves healthy, to prevent myself and yourself, your friends, your children, your grandchildren, your grandparents from getting COVID. We need to do our part, and then we don't have to worry. We are sure God will do his part. Again, thank you so much, Patrice. And at this time, we'll have a little break. Curtis Bryan will come and lead us on the song, The Lord My Healer. And then after that, we'll come back on with our expert physician, and we'll talk some more about COVID-19. And so you can be educated and you can know what you need to do at this time.
Wow, good afternoon, everyone. Yes, good evening, everybody. And we say welcome again. And this little song is a biblical song. It's I am the Lord, I am the God, your healer. I am the Lord that healeth thee. I sent my word to heal your disease. I am the God that healeth. And so let's try this little song this evening. This song will be our theme song as we go throughout this series of meetings. And it's a very easy song. Next week, I'm certain we'll have it in the studio so we can play it along as we sing it together. I am the God that healeth thee. I am the God, Lord, your healer. Don't worry about how I sing. I want you to sing in your setting wherever you are. I want you to sing the words along with me. I am the God that healeth thee. I am the Lord that healeth. I sent my word to heal your disease. I am the Lord that healeth. One more time, I am the God. I am the God that healeth thee. I am the Lord, your healer. I sent my word to heal your disease. I am the God that healeth. You know, many people, like we have heard in the testimony, who were sick because of this COVID. But do you believe tonight that he is there for you? And if you do, let's say to God, you are my healer. Let's make it real. You are my God. You are the God that healeth me. You are the Lord, my healer. You sent your word to heal my disease. You are the God, my healer.
I am the Lord that healeth thee. A French writer said, and I quote, simple truth is a relief from grand speculation. Simple truth is a relief from grand speculation. You've heard the simple truth from Nurse Hunt as she shared her story. At this time, we are privileged and delighted to have with us a noted physician. And he has consented willingly and gladly to share with us. So at this time, I speak of Dr. Alec, emergency room physician at Doctor's Hospital. And so I invite Dr. Alec to come to the podium, and he's gonna be talking to us for a while. You know, a lot of persons ask, is COVID real? What is COVID? So, Dr. Alec, I ask you the question, is COVID real? What is COVID-19? How do we get it in our bodies? How is it spread?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Sister Forbes. Can you hear me? Is everybody able to hear me? Give me a thumbs up, Sister Forbes, if you can hear me. Okay. All right. Sorry that we're taking the virtual stage today. Not able to make the physical stage. But thank you, and I'm very thankful to our nurse who was able to share her personal experience, even with being infected with COVID, and also thanking her for being on the front line too, because boy, listen to me, this is a task of itself. I'm an emergency physician by specialty, and so from all the notifications came out about COVID-19, these are things that we were looking at and we were waiting on. I remember it was as early as December 19th in 2019 that the first scare happened. You know, patient coming through Tokyo, spent a couple of hours there, and then came up from Tokyo into Miami, spent a day or two there, and then down into the Bahamas. And that was the initial. That was one of the alarms, came back negative. The point of it is that it just gave us the quick reality that things were able to spread very quickly from one part of the world to the other, very easily. We realized too that all of this backtracked to seeing an illness that was different from the other illness that we've seen, raising a red flag about it, and then tracking it back to, testing for it, finding out that it was, coronavirus, something from the coronavirus family, giving it a name, and then backtracking to where the possible source could have been from it and everything of that sort. All right. Long and short of it is that if the question of is COVID-19 real, and the answer is yes, it is real, it is there, and it's resident with us at present. Because the issue is this, for the people who initially thought that, man, it was just a normal flu, that kind of thing. Listen to me, if you sit from the vantage point that I do, you will understand that this thing is not a normal flu. It is nowhere close to doing what a regular flu does. And for the people who have had family members have it or who have had it themselves, they can tell you that it's not. All right. Now, so I want to share just a few things with you. I know today that the focus was that of how is COVID spread and being able to answer a couple of those questions. So I want to share a little bit of stuff with you first, and then afterwards we should be able to go towards having a conversation. So I'm hoping that the communication is good between me here and Sister Forbes, you over there, so that we can hear and speak to each other clearly and be able to get the communication going properly. All right. But long and short of it, people, we're in a war right now. It's a disaster zone. And if you've seen my emergency room, I've never seen the emergency room look like this before. It's a disaster. I mean, it's, we have to understand the seriousness of this thing. And I think sometimes some of us may still not put as much importance on this thing as we should. So I want to show a little bit of a presentation here, just to hit a couple of points, and then afterwards you can go into conversation. But yeah, if you can see my slide, yeah, with some conversations here, I just wanted to share just a few things. All right. COVID or corona, well, COVID-19 is a type of coronavirus, and it's so called because of the spike proteins that are sitting on the outside of the virus. If you can see that's looking at it with a very high electron microscope. It looks like a crown or corona, something that sort of encircles it, and hence the name, right? So COVID-19 is coronavirus disease 2019. And we're going back to this because honestly, right now, with this new wave and now the reality hitting people, we almost have to start back from scratch with the education, because a lot of us have, let our guards down, and we have to start back from the beginning to educate again about this thing, for us to have a chance of being able to fight this and win this battle with COVID-19. All right. But yeah, so anyways, coronavirus, it's one of a family of illnesses, so of viruses actually. So coronaviruses existed a long time ago, all right? It's been in people and it's been in animals, and then you have some animal coronaviruses that can spread to people. And we heard about the MERS and the SARS and all those, and now with the COVID-19. It is highly infectious. It was transmitted from animals to humans. It has a much higher mortality rate than the flu, and give simple numbers that you can understand. On average, flu kills 1 in 900, and the coronavirus killed 1 in 40. All right, and that was the numbers from earlier on. High rate of infectivity, 3% chance of infecting somebody. So basically, in the space of between 14 to 28 days, you come from 1 to 3 to 9 to 27 to 81 to 243. I mean, just like that. I don't know if anybody's listen. The original country that I'm from is Dominica, and in August, we were at the point where we were having just about probably 3 active cases, and within the space of a 2-week span, probably one event or a series of a couple events brought the numbers from somewhere around 9 or so to all of a sudden 43, and then it went to 108, it went to 200 and something, 300 and something. Right now they're about 1,800 and something within the space of about 2 to 3 weeks. So if you're thinking of reality, understand those realities of how numbers can just all of a sudden explode. All right. This slide shows you what a virus is in comparison to a human hair. All right. And you have to be careful when you listen to and listen, let me just be real with you. There are a lot of videos that came out on a lot of things. Everybody has become an expert. Everybody has their own YouTube channel, their own TikTok feed, and their own WhatsApp blast, and they've been sharing a lot of stuff. the average person is inundated with so much information that many times we cannot process. And many times we have to go back through the information that you've been listening all along and clarify the data and just kind of make it make sense to people. Because if for the untrained human ear hearing all of this information, it will scare you. I remember one video coming about where this actually a doctor was talking to a school board, and he was, I mean, just ranting that masks don't do a thing because the virus is smaller than the mask and blah, 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 and the rest of it, and so on and so forth. And it just, you know, it went viral, and those things very easily go viral, right? I digress to show sometimes people can give information and give something that sounds like truth, but it's because they still don't really give the full story or a full understanding of how it is. All right. A virus is very small. We see the arrow pointing to this little beanie thing that's a virus. And look at the size of a human hair on the left side. Look at how big a human hair is, and you can see the size of a virus. Look at the size of a bacteria on the left side of it. You can see the size of a virus. A virus is very, very small, ridiculously small. So, of course, he made this study and he said, man, listen, the viruses could go through masks and so on and so forth. What they're talking about, masks are not effective at all, blah, 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 blah. And he went on. But this is the issue right here. When a person coughs or sneezes or anything of that sort, you see there are certain things that, so when a person talks or sneezes or coughs, what they release are what are called droplets. So viruses don't have feet. They don't walk. They don't fly. They don't, you know, they're not like mosquitoes or anything of that sort. They have to be transported in something. So they'll be transported in droplets. And so what we understand is that when you put on a mask, you're blocking the droplets from getting through to your nostrils, because the droplets will get there, them containing the viruses. They are small droplets that are small enough to be sort of aerosolized and stay in the air for a longer period of time. There are bigger droplets that just drop off and drop down to the floor. What they were showing is that the ones that would be containing Ebola probably drop about within a 3 feet distance. The COVID is that, you know, somewhere within this range here, hence the guidelines of 6 feet distance. Measles and those would be even smaller and kind of could hang around and stay aerosolized for a long period of time. All right. So how is COVID spread? COVID is spread from person to person. So you're looking at close contact, you're looking at crowded settings, you're looking at closed spaces with poor ventilation or prolonged contact with an infected person. If you combine these factors, what you will find is that you will have a much increased risk of spreading the virus. So for example, if a member of the family now had to care for an infected person and they were sharing the same space, right? So what you have is now prolonged contact with an infected person plus a closed space. What that's going to do is that is going to increase the risk of spreading the virus, right? Even just talking about spread, I let people understand where you have to be vigilant. COVID. So if you're talking about close contact, crowded settings, close spaces with poor ventilation, prolonged contact. So now you have to also consider the lunch rooms. All right. You remember when we set up offices and you set up lunch rooms? The lunch rooms are usually small, right? So I come in there to eat my lunch. You come in there to eat your lunch. You pull your mask down and you start eating. I pull my mask down and I start eating. We start talking, and one of us had the virus and didn't know, and then all of a sudden the next person get it. All right. These are the instances. Oh, you invite the person home to lunch and everything of that sort. The person comes down and they, a lot of COVID is spread at the lunch table. A lot of COVID is spread in the offices. You start talking and somehow, people wear masks, and then somehow they get to start talking, and just to emphasize the point, you have to pull down your mask to talk properly. You have to understand the reality of these things. These are the ways in which COVID can spread. Or you're in a car together, but because two of us work for the same place, and so we're in this car, and you're in the car and I'm in the car, and we're driving down that side, and we start talking, and the mask is down and so on and so forth. Now we're sharing the same air, and then you can spread the virus. All right. So what happens is that when you breathe, even when you breathe, people, breathe, talk. And then the big ones, which are the cough or sneeze, you let out droplets, you let out aerosols. The aerosols are the smaller ones, right? The droplets are the bigger one, the bigger particles. All right. And when you let out those things now, what you find is that they hang around in the air for a bit, or they, transfer over to the next person, and that person could get it into their mouths, into their nostrils, or to a less extent, even into their eyes. All right. And then the virus just wants a place to be able to get into your mucous membranes, to be able to get into your body, to cause to start the infectious process going. All right. Well, we know the deal about getting into your bodies. You get into your bodies, you get through your mucous membranes, and then the infection starts there. This slide here just shows, green to red, events and activities that have lower versus higher risk of spreading COVID. All right. So, for example, you could imagine, in a nice little tight bar with a bunch of people drinking and talking at the top of their lungs and everything of that sort. Look at the amount of droplets coming out and passing through the people. And so therefore going to a bar is set up as one of the riskiest ones. All right. Attending a religious service with 500 plus worshipers, some of those mega churches and everything, people bunched up in a small area, poor circulation. So you have a lot of voices, a lot of droplets, a lot of droplets being produced, and poor circulation. That's gonna be areas for spread. All right. And it goes down the list. So for example, just going to pumping gasoline, playing tennis, going camping. So things that are outdoors are way less likely to spread the COVID virus itself. All right. And then so we go into preventing the spread of respiratory diseases, and we talk about social distancing. You realize why the distancing. You're trying to stay away from people's droplets. So you're trying to stay away from people's droplets, so you stay a distance from them. Plain and simple, easy to talk about. How about your own droplets? Your own droplets, the only way you can contain them, if you're coughing or sneezing, you need to cough or sneeze into a tissue. It's going to contain your droplets. The other way you can contain your droplets is by wearing a mask over your nose and mouth. All right. The other way that you can contain or prevent, this time now you're talking about preventing entry, which means you don't want to take a hand that has any particles or droplets or possible virus on it and put it in your eyes, or put it in your nose, or put it in your mouth. Because what you've done is that you've just taken that virus and transported it where it wants to be. So you want to stop those type of activities. And so therefore those hands, you want to make sure that those hands are washed all the time, frequently. If you don't have access to washing, and by the way, washing means soap and water, 20 seconds at least, sing the birthday song and everything of that sort. If you don't have access to water, the next thing you want to do is to sanitize. So you want to be able to use hand sanitizer instead. All right. How else do you contain your droplets? If you're sick, stay home. All right. It's watch out for is my sinus that has flare up and bother me. It might be COVID. Watch out for I have a lot of allergies. It might be COVID. I'm not saying that you don't have allergies. I'm not saying that you don't have sinus, but you may have sinus plus COVID. You may have allergies plus COVID. You may have, the little sneezy and the sniffy plus COVID. Just remember, sneezing and coughing are the wonderful guns that the virus used to arm itself, and when you shoot the gun, it shoots out and it goes to the other person. Cleaning and disinfecting frequently touch objects and surfaces, so the droplets and those can land on a surface, and the virus can live there for a short period of time, but within that short period of time, somebody else could touch where somebody else who's been infected has been, and then they can pass on that infection to themselves. That's the reason why there's so much fight with hand washing, cleaning and disinfecting surfaces and those. All right. We're keeping it simple. All right. So look at this face mask. The reason for face mask, and that, people put out stuff on WhatsApp about, oh, he pulled some steam into something and he blew it and it came all the top of this face mask and everything and that sort. The aim of face mask is to contain your droplets within your space. If all of the droplets that come out of your body just landing right here, right alongside your eyes or, right alongside your face, and it's not going into the air and shooting out into the atmosphere to hit the other person, then it will stay contained. So you'll be in your space, that other person will be in their space. And if you combine, because this is the issue right here, masks are effective when everyone in the area is masked. All right. If you look right there, you will realize that where's my little laser? Let's see my little laser. I'm not seeing this. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, but if you are, for example, if you're in a place and people are wearing masks, you want to know that not just you're wearing a mask, but the other person is wearing a mask. Why? Because if one person is wearing a mask, and we're talking about the simple face mask. I'm a physician. I wear N95s. The N95s provide protection not just for my secretions going out, but it also protects me from other people's secretions, right? So therefore, people's droplets cannot get to me. That's the only way that I can take care of patients. That's the only way I can go putting tubes down COVID-19 patients' airways and putting them on life support and everything. Why? Because they're generating a bunch of aerosols and droplets and everything. And I have to be protected so that those aerosols and droplets don't come in contact with my nasal passages and my mouth. And listen to me, for the amount of patients I've put tubes down their airways, all right, the one who spoke to the school board in that state up in the US there and told them that masks don't work, I turned to him and I tell him, I said, by God's grace, there has been a year and a half. I've been working in the front line. As compared to him, he made a statement that he treated at least 15 COVID patients. And I tell him, listen, that's my day's work. On an average, I see 10 to 12 COVID patients per day. By God's grace, I've not contracted COVID in the past year and a half working through the emergency room and all of the rest of it. So I thank God for that. So the N95 I would be wearing, yes, but if you wear the simple face mask, the surgical mask, anything of that sort, you want to be in a room where everybody is wearing the mask too. Because if you're wearing a mask and the other person is wearing a mask, you have very low risk of transmission. If you're wearing a mask and the other person wearing a mask and you're a distance from each other, then wonderful, almost zero risk of transmission. All right. So you have to understand. And the other thing about masking is this. A lot of people, and man, listen, I walk around and I see these people wearing this. Oh yeah, they're wearing, and I'm like, these are not masks. These are horse feeders. All right. They're horse feeders. They have to be horse feeders because that's when, you put food in the thing and the horse can sort of dip down and eat the food and then lift his head back up and everything, because that's the only way, that's the only thing that this could be, because this person is not wearing a mask because it's not covering the nose. It's actually covering the chin. Anyways, you have to make sure that your mask covers the nose and the mouth, all right? Because you're trying to cover both of the places where the droplets come from. People say, oh, don't wear the mask over the nose and mouth, just wear it over the mouth alone. Listen. And then for the people who, if you're uncomfortable with wearing a mask, then what you do is that you stay home for most of the time. If you wear a mask to go out, you wear a mask to go out for half an hour, and you come back home and you take it off. You reach in the confines of your home and you say, oh, finally, I can take my mask off. I'm at my house. That's fine. I wear an N95 sometimes for 18 hours of the day with probably a 5-minute break in when I stop to eat, and I got to make sure that my surroundings are safe before I go eat. Sometimes I go eat in my car. You understand me? But let's talk reality, people. We have to be real with this whole thing. All right. So yeah, so this, okay, yeah, physical distancing, look at this, right? These are now studies. You're looking at risk of transmission without physical distancing, 12.8%, risk of transmission with physical distancing, 2.6%. The numbers are there, right? Face mask, 17.4 to 3.1. Wow. Eye protection, 16 to 5.5, right? But the thing is, you have these things need to be done in combination with each other. All right. I went, to a place. I saw a friend of mine. He was wearing a face shield alone, and I said, "Hey, you wearing a face shield alone?" "Yes, but I mean, you could wear either a face shield alone or you could wear either a face shield or a mask. Isn't that what they said?" I said, "No, sir." They said mask and face shield. Yeah, but I mean, come on. I said, here's okay. Here's what. Okay. Here's what. I'm gonna bring a COVID-19 patient in here. I'm gonna put a face shield alone on that person. And I'm gonna leave you in the room with them. And he calmly went and he put his face mask on. Sometimes I have to keep the conversation simple because we have to understand the principles here. All right. So block the spread of COVID-19, social distance, wear a mask, wash your hands as often as you can. If you can't wear, you can't do the hand washing, you can do hand sanitizer at the time. If you're sick, stay home. Vaccination. So, conversation again. As Seventh-day Adventists, we believe in preventative medicine. Into preventative health, actually. The New Start, nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance, air, rest, trust in God. All of these things are things that we practice as good stewards of the bodies that God has blessed us with, in order to tweak that body and keep that body functioning properly, in order to prevent disease. All right? In order to prevent disease. And in fact, if we do have disease, we find that practicing these health principles can actually decrease the severity of the disease that we get. In fact, there are studies now that show that people with better diet practices, as in people who practice plant-based diets. In fact, the study was on plant-based and pescatarian diets, and they found that they had less severe COVID symptoms and less severe COVID disease. All right. So all those principles are that of practicing preventative health. Vaccination is also that of practicing preventative health. The purpose of vaccination is to allow your body to be sensitized to the virus and be armed and ready for it when it comes, without having gotten the disease itself. I will stop and let people understand the alternative to vaccination is getting the disease itself. And there are some who have gotten the disease and have lived to tell the tale. There's some who've gotten the disease and gotten mild symptoms, but there are some who have not. There's some who have gotten disease who have died. We know that our death rate is somewhere 380 something. And there are also some who have gotten the disease, and this is what we don't have the numbers for, but we see it in practice. We have long COVID clinics and all of those things, because there are some people who are having persistent side effects of COVID, which include clots, by the way. There are people who've got, by the way, the incidence of clots in COVID are actually 20%. That's what the numbers had shown, right? Which means 1 in 5. So when they were talking about the 34 of 11 million people who took the AstraZeneca vaccine who had gotten clots, the clots for people who've gotten COVID are like 1 out of 5. All right. So do the numbers. All right. There are people who are recovering from COVID who still have not gotten back their taste as yet, who still have not gotten back their smell as yet, who still have problems with hearing, who still have problems with heart failure, who still have problems with lung disease, people who cannot walk 5 steps without getting short of breath because there's still nodules and scarring and fibrosis in their lungs, and so many other complications. All right. You don't want to get COVID. All right. You know, you actually do not want to get COVID. Let's just let that point sit home first. So if there's something that gives you another added layer of protection, there's no protection as 100% in this case. But if it adds an added layer of protection to prevent you from getting or spreading it, like for example, that the vaccine here, for example, the one that's more available to us, AstraZeneca, it says 81% protection from getting or spreading it. So that means 81% of it, you're looking at not getting or spreading it. But then you have about 20% who probably may get it, but what is shown is that you will either get a much less severe illness, and also it almost guarantees that your risk of hospitalization and death are like minimal, almost to none. That's like equivalent to wearing seatbelts versus not wearing seatbelts for an accident. You wear a seatbelt, you can get into an accident too, you can get hurt, but what it's shown is that seatbelts prevent much more severe illnesses and accident within an accident. So you wear a seatbelt. It would be the same thing in terms of encouraging vaccination. All right. So I'm going to stop there in terms of the conversation now and open the floor for questions, and just encouraging us to be vigilant, right? Like we really have to be vigilant in this, and dealing with this COVID crisis and this COVID epidemic. We have to be diligent, all right? In taking those safeguards, we have to not let our guards down. And the thing is, we do these with a confidence that we have a God who cares, who will protect us. And whatever we do is that we do it in faith, depending on God to protect us.
Right.
That's what I do. And I'm going to leave it there now for questioning and for other conversation.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Allen. We're having some problems with
somebody's mic is on, I think. Okay, so I know we're having some trouble with audio. I don't know if the people can still hear me, but I see a question in the group. And whenever you're ready, you can stop me, Sister Anna. Somebody asked about, with the mask, what about breathing in back? What should be out, right? So I remember there was a video that came out with somebody who said that they were a nurse, and the mask, you're rebreathing oxygen and, rebreathing carbon dioxide, actually. There was, yeah. So initially when I put on the mask for the first time, right? About 2 or 3 hours of wearing the mask, and I started to feel weird. I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel dizzy. That was the weirdest thing for me, right? I quickly got accustomed to doing it, right? Now, we go right back to basic answering again, right? If a patient comes in to my emergency room hyperventilating, right? I would take a paper bag and put it over their mouth and nose, all right? Sorry, I have a big paper bag here, which is so I hopefully I can use it as a little thing, right? So you take a paper bag and you put it over their mouth and nose, right? When they breathe in, the paper bag crumples like this. And when they breathe out, the paper bag expands like this, right? So the paper bag expands, trapping all their CO2. And then when they breathe in, the paper bag actually contracts like this, allowing them to rebreathe their CO2 or their carbon dioxide. Now, do you have any masks that you put on your face that when you breathe out, the mask actually, this is a mask. When I breathe out, does my mask billow out like this and trap carbon dioxide? So when I breathe in, the carbon dioxide goes back in. No, it doesn't. The air comes out the sides here, down below here, everything of that sort. As I said before, the purpose of the mask is to allow your droplets to remain in this confined space of the mask and not go out into the atmosphere. So there is still some air, there's still air exchange, and you're still breathing in oxygen. All right. You remember our nostrils still filter dust particles, droplets, all these things. We still have these between our sinuses and our hair follicles and all of these things and stuff that filter the air that goes in. So what goes down into our lungs end up being much purer than even what goes into our nostrils. Our body system still works. At the end of the day, is wearing a mask a replacement for fresh air? No, it's not. So at the end of the day, you still have to find the times where you can go out, go on the beach, go on the side and stuff, and be able to get some good fresh air. All right. Walk out in your yard. You understand? You don't have your mask on when you're walking around in your yard or anything of that sort. However, if you're in an enclosed building with people and stuff, you have to wear a mask. It's the recommended thing to do. But yes, you're not rebreathing your own carbon dioxide, as some of the the WhatsApp experts and the TikTok experts have shown. Okay. Let's see. Are we still there? I'm still waiting to see what's going on. Okay. Somebody says, which vaccine do you recommend taking? What are the main side effects of taking the vaccine? Okay, so starting with the main side effects of taking the vaccines. So most of the vaccines, when it goes into your system, your body mounts an immune response, so you will get sort of features of a viral infection for a short period of time. And let me just clarify my talk just to make sure that you're not confused in any way. Your body mounts an immune response to that particle, to that the spike protein that it produces. All right. And your body responds like it is mounting antibodies to a virus. All right. But let's be clear with this. The vaccine cannot give you COVID-19. It cannot give you the virus itself. Why? Because you're not getting the whole virus. It's like taking mango skins and trying to make a mango tree out of it, right? The mango skin cannot grow into a mango tree. All right. Let's just get that straight. But the average person will get, they may get some body pains, they may get some pains at the site of the injection, you may get a low-grade fever, you may get some feeling tired, you may get even probably like a feeling of a little sore throat. Some people may feel a bit dizzy and feel a little bit woozy, and so you must be knowledgeable that you can have side effects if they are significant enough. For example, if your pain is significant enough, you may take a Panadol for it or something of that sort. Or if your fever is significant enough, you may do something. You don't have to take anything before you take the vaccine. If you do have the effects, you can. All right. Which vaccine do you recommend taking? Honestly, let me tell you something. Any one of them is better than none at all at this point in time. All right, that's the first thing. for me, and this is just me personally, I lean more towards the AstraZeneca just because of the profile of the demographics of the population that it was studied in. I think that it may have been studied in more places where variants may have even been present even before we knew that, all right, because it was studied in UK, South Africa, and Brazil and those places. So that's my lean. However, you take one of them. The Pfizer is the one that's FDA approved. It's FDA approved now, and it's also FDA approved for ages down to 12. So so therefore, if you're talking about the child 12, 13 years old, then it would be the Pfizer. So the deal is that vaccination is another layer on top of hand washing, mask wearing, social distancing. It's another layer. I think somebody also asked another question. By the way, Sister Anna, you here? Are you able to speak now?
Yes, up at time. Sorry, we had quite a bit of interruptions, but we will persist. We will persist and we will win. The devil don't want us to get the message out. But I want to say, I think what has been said so far is quite clean and simple and clear that even a child can understand and can see how if you take those interventions, you can keep yourself healthy. Now, I have one question because you've answered most of them. And the question, Dr. Allen, is if I am asymptomatic, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you
Yes.
clearly.
If I am asymptomatic, can I spread COVID-19? I don't have any symptoms. Can I still spread the disease?
So there are
That's
some
one of the
people.
questions.
Sure. Yes, there are some people who, from their interactions and everything of that sort, the COVID-19 virus with the droplets and everything of that sort got into their nostrils. It may have caused so there's a couple of things actually. There's the asymptomatic patient, and then there's the pre-symptomatic patient. All right, there's two types, by the way: asymptomatic and pre-symptomatic patient. The pre-symptomatic patients are the patients who can spread COVID even prior to having symptoms. So those are the people who the virus spread into their nostrils. It got into their nostrils, got into their mucous membranes, it started to multiply, but they have not yet developed symptoms. Those are the people when you get that ridiculous phone call 3 days later and say, hey, listen, I test positive now. I was at your home day before yesterday. You understand? So you probably may be exposed. Yes, it has been shown that 2 days prior to the onset of symptoms, that person can be spreading COVID even before they'd start developing symptoms. Because remember, from the actual exposure to the time of developing symptoms, maybe 7 to 9 days on average, actually. All right, so if you backtrack a couple of days prior to that, they may have been able to spread the virus even though they didn't yet develop symptoms. That's one set. Then there's another set who actually may have gotten COVID, but just really didn't get the whole fever, body pains, and whatever. And basically, it was not significant enough for it to be, noticed by them as in an illness. However, they are what are called the asymptomatic spreaders. So there are people who can spread it, although they are without symptoms, and those are the asymptomatic ones. So remember, pre-symptomatic versus asymptomatic. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Now, how can I confirm? If I'm wondering, somebody calls and they say, look, I've tested positive for COVID-19. And I've been in contact with that person, what should my response do? What should my behavior be? What should I do?
Okay. So if you are, and that's a very important question. Why? Because sometimes practically in this situation right now, sometimes it takes the Ministry of Health a couple of days to get to all of the people who were contacts of that person, right? And you then get that phone call already from the person themselves saying, hey, listen, I test positive. I was with you there. What do you do? You go into quarantine. All right. Now, understand this, people. If someone tested positive, and you were exposed, do not jump out and go and get a test right now, because it's highly likely that your test will be negative. And if you get a negative test right now, what is that going to tell you? It's going to tell you nothing. If when that person call you, you're like, oh, wow, something, I did have a fever and I didn't understand what it was about. Or I had some body pains and some sniffles and I thought it's my sinus that was on me. Then it may be reasonable now for you to get tested, right? Because you are symptomatic, so you want to test to see if it's COVID, right? But if you're just an exposure, totally asymptomatic, no issues whatsoever, and somebody call you and tell you that you get exposed, you need to quarantine for 14 days. Why? Because you now want to basically separate yourself from people so that you are not capable of spreading it. And within that period of time, you are observing yourself or monitoring yourself for the onset of symptoms. You may never get symptoms at all, which means that you didn't really get a major infection or anything of that sort, or you may develop symptoms. I will tell people, after that quarantine period, you get tested at the end of it. Because at the end of it, you may test negative, and you test negative. Oh, wow, wonderful. You dodged that bullet. Thank the Lord. If you, at the end of it, you test positive, then now you you upgrade from quarantine now to isolation. Isolation now is the period where you are positive and confirmed positive, and now you are in a period where you stay away from people so that you do not spread it to others. All right. So you know the difference between quarantine and isolation. All right. Quarantine is for healthy people who've been exposed, who are looking and making sure they don't get it. Isolation is for people that done get it already, and now they're staying away from people so that they don't spread it. All right. Hope that answers your question.
Dr. Alec, if I am on quarantine, should I go out to the beach? I'm on quarantine. Should I go to the beach? Should I go to the food store? Which activities should I be doing or not doing while I'm in quarantine?
See, you're trying to get me in trouble, right? But anyway, last I checked, quarantines are you supposed to be housebound, right? As in meaning yard bound, meaning in your quarters, all right? Your quarters, because the deal is to not spread it, right? Which means stay in your house. Go outside and get some fresh air out in your yard, away from people, by yourself, all right? Interact with people on the phone. All right. FaceTime, right? With the phone, right? But
Don't go to
stay in your
work.
quarters. All right. Do not go to work. Hey, you can work online.
Not go to church if you're having church.
Oh, mercy. Listen, let me tell you something. Do you know that there are people who were exposed and they run quick and go take the vaccine? You understand me? Don't do that. Listen, understand that, this is something, this is a disease not just of yourself, but of others, because your actions are not just affecting you, they're affecting others. All right. So please be responsible. All right. Are you seeing the questions that are in the Zoom chat, Sister Anna? You're not able to see them, right?
No, I'm not. No, I'm at church. Where I'm
That's
standing,
fine.
I cannot see them, but once they send them in, we'll get in touch. We'll connect again and we'll answer those
Okay.
questions if they
Tell
have
me-
not been answered.
Tell me if you have any other questions. If not, I can probably scroll through a couple of them and answer a couple of them too.
Okay, one final one, and then you can scroll through those and maybe pick up another one. What people are asking, what is the difference between the antigen test and the PCR? and which one at which times? When is the antigen appropriate to take? And when should I do the PCR?
Okay. So understand this, right? And I want to make sure that it's placed in as simple as a way to not confuse anybody, right? Because my aim here is not to turn you into physicians or to turn you into lab technicians or anything of that sort, right? But the antigen is a simple screen. If your antigen turns out positive, then it needs to be confirmed with a PCR. A PCR is a confirmatory test. All right. So it stands to say that the PCR is more accurate, the PCR is more in depth, right? Whereas the antigen is a simple screen. It's almost like the difference between doing a quick pee in a cup and stick a stick in there to see if you're pregnant or not, right? And then when you do that, then you go confirm, and you confirm with the actual blood test that tests the actual level of beta HCG, or or you put an ultrasound that make you see a baby there, right? So understand that difference. All right. Now, when do you take what? Do you take what? All right. So because the rapid screen is quick, easy, cheap, and everything of that sort, the workplace will be doing screens, for example, for work purposes. You may use for travel purposes and everything of that sort. But listen, if you are exposed, if you have symptoms, start from here. If you have symptoms, don't let a negative rapid test tell you that, oh, everything cool, I can still go to work and go among people and everything of that sort. If you have symptoms, quarantine, bang, just like that. If you have symptoms, stay home. Don't go to church, don't go to work, don't go anywhere, stay home. All right? Do not let because why? Because those tests can be inaccurate. It's that simple. All right, so don't don't let a test be your determinant. Let good sense be your determinant. All right. If you have symptoms, stay home. All right, and then check with your doctor and everything of that sort. But let them guide you through when to take the rapid, when to take the PCR. All right, but PCR is confirmatory. Rapid is a screen. Mm-hmm.
All right, you could take a few questions.
Okay.
Maybe
We'll knock out a couple. Yes. We'll knock out a couple here. If somebody is already taken the first vaccine dose, catch COVID, and are unable to take the second dose because they still have COVID, what happens? Well, you just get delayed. All right. It means that you have to now go through that period of COVID, recover from it, and then after recovery, then you can go back to get your second vaccination dose. All right. How long would antibodies remain in the body after having COVID? For most of the studies talk about, a few weeks to probably up to about 2-3 months, that kind of thing. Is there any extra benefit of wearing 2 masks? Sometimes there is, and well, listen, even for example, sorry, unmuting. Even with regards to having a mask, when it comes to cloth masks and those, they found that layering of the cloth material, multi-layering gets you a stronger coverage, and it blocks more droplets. It's more effective. So so sometimes 2 masks may be better than 1. All right. In terms of in my arena, many times I see people wearing 2 masks and everything of that sort. For me, a standard well-fitted N95, you put 1 mask on, it's more effective wearing a 1 N95 mask. All right. But with regards to the simpler mask or the simple surgical mask and those, and some people like the style, they drop the surgical mask on and then they put the cloth mask over it. I would recommend that as opposed to a cloth mask alone, right? Put your surgical mask on and then put the mask that fit your outfit, and have the glamour and style and stuff like that, but be safe. Okay. Why are countries giving 1 dose from 1 vaccine and the second dose from another? Is that safe? They are studying around using, mixing the vaccine doses in terms of getting 1 from 1 brand and 1 from the other. And they found that it's been safe, and they found that it probably may be a bit more effective. There's still studies to come out on that. But it's not, at the end of the day, in most cases, the 2 doses you get a much more robust immune response. All right. And forming those antibodies that your body needs to have those battlers or those soldiers ready for if you were to get exposed to the vaccine, to the virus, sorry. It says many people are dying not long after taking the vaccine. So that okay, let's just touch this question for a little while, right? Health experts have to sit down and figure out if they report if somebody dies and if it happens anytime around taking the vaccine, yes or no. And then now they have to go through the process of determining whether it's related or not related. And here's the reason why. All right. And I answer this question simple by telling people this. Every 40 seconds in the US, and I'm quoting US data because the US data I have readily available. Every 40 seconds, a person dies of a stroke or a heart attack. Every 40 seconds. That was before COVID, before any of these things here. If right now you're mass vaccinating, let's say 1 million people, do you think that there are people who may die while they're driving to the COVID center to get their vaccine? Yes. Do you think there are people who may die shortly after receiving the vaccine? Yes. Because every 40 seconds, somebody dies from a heart attack or a stroke. And that's just heart attack and stroke figures alone. So we have to be careful that we don't, put these things, like, for example, the patient who crashes in a car accident because he had a seizure, they come to the hospital and all of a sudden you say, well, driving in the car caused him to have a seizure. Can we make that association? Or so the problem is the fact that cars are bad. No, you have to be careful what you do with information, right? And so just be careful when you make some of those blanket statements, because some of them really may not necessarily be valid. All right. Would I be able to give blood after being fully vaccinated? Yes. The answer is yes, and the Red Cross confirmed that. Why is only one vaccine is approved when there are a number of others being used? They're going through and those others that are being used have been given emergency use authorization, meaning that they're basically just a couple of steps away from being approved, and the powers that be, like the Food and Drug Administration and stuff, have realized that they've already fit the criteria where it's likely that they will gain approval. So they find that it's valid enough to give them emergency use authorization. All right. I'm fully vaccinated with AstraZeneca as well. Would you recommend me taking Pfizer as well? At this point, I don't have recommendations with regards to that. Stay tuned. If you get recommendations from the powers that be, then you'll be able to work on with that, with regards to things like booster shots and the rest of those. All right. Do I have more time?
No, I think our time is up. And I just want to thank you so much. The information was simple truths. And to those out there, Dr. Alec is not just a medical doctor. He's a Christian medical doctor. We can trust him. We can take his word as he shared science-based evidence, no conspiracy theories, science-based. And as the French writer rightly said, simple truth is a relief from grand speculation. So we got simple truth. We got our 5 big ammunitions on the prevention of COVID. You asked the question, can I prevent myself from getting COVID? Yes. The 5 ammunitions: social distance, wear a mask and wear it properly, wash your hands, stay home if you're sick, vaccination. And each one is a layer, and each one gives, and so you get a better response. At this time, we briefly gonna do the demonstration. Dr. Alex spoke about it, about wearing the mask. I have someone here and she's gonna come as we talk about briefly how to wear a mask effectively. Because as I said, as I was coming here today, I saw a number of persons with the mask on, but the mask is not being worn properly. First of all, we have cloth masks. And lots of those are very, very decorative. They look beautiful. But when you think of a mask, you have to think about fit and you have to think about filtration. Is it able to filter the droplets, as I said, and prevent them from getting to you? A lot of the cloth masks have absolutely no protection. No, absolutely no protection. They are just for pretty, right? And then, so that's the cloth mask. And I would say these are appropriate for low activities. Like if you're going walking on the beach and you're walking, you're passing people occasionally, but you're not stopping, you're not having a conversation. Basically, any mask would do. Any mask would do. That protection, that would be fine. Now you step it up a bit. You going into the food store. And that's I would say that's a moderate risk now. You're going from a low risk situation to a moderate risk situation. For that purpose, I would recommend that you wear the surgical mask, not the cloth mask, that you wear a surgical mask. And because that would give you at least about 71% efficiency in terms of protecting you. And when you wear that mask, you need to make sure, if you look at this fraud, the mask is covering the nose and the mouth. Now she wears a mask, that's 71%. I wear my mask, that's 71%. So altogether, we have perhaps maybe about 91% effectiveness, and then you put the social distance in there, that bumps that right up. So you see each layer increase your protection in that. But, and also what is recommended by CDC, and some people do that, is they will put, I have a clean one for her, they would put a cloth mask over this just to get a better seal. Because on the corners here, it's all about the fit, and the top here, and down here. So it's fine to put a cloth mask, over the surgical mask. And when you have done that, according to CDC, now you have about, that's like an N95 mask. So your protection is right up. And you see how well, because that would seal all of those spaces up here. When she put the cloth mask over that, that's a good purpose to use the cloth mask, and you could have all the decoration that you want, because that would increase the efficiency of the surgical mask. And then if you working in an area where you are tending to COVID patients, meaning if you are home and you have someone who is symptomatic, who has been diagnosed, you can do that if you have it, because these things are readily available, or you can go to your N95 mask, which is the top of the top, and you can wear that for your high risk area. You can step it up to your N95, or if you do not have an N95, wear your surgical mask and put your cloth mask over it to make sure you have a good seal. You know, and they even have some seals that you can even purchase to go over your surgical mask. You want to make sure that the mask is covering the nose and the mouth. If you look at our model, Sister Strawn, you want to make sure that's covering properly, so that you know when you throw in those other layers of the social distance, the hand washing, the vaccination, there you have it. And I want to say, I work as a frontline nurse, have tended to COVID patients, and I give all praise and thanks to God. I have not gotten COVID. And because I'm following all of the protocols, I'm doing all the things that lies in my power, I don't have any fear. I feel confident that God will continue to keep me and protect me from COVID-19. So I encourage you today. You have listened, you have heard, it's been explained so that you can understand. What you don't understand, shoot us your questions. We'll answer them perhaps next week, or we definitely will answer them before the series is completed. So do what lies in your power. Remember, it is God's will to keep us in health. It is God's will to keep us in health, to prevent us from getting COVID. And even if we get it, he will cure us. But faith without works is dead. So let us do our part to stay healthy. At this time, I'm going to ask our pastor, Pastor Lewis, to come and bring us remarks and the benediction and announcements. Pastor Lewis.
Thank you very much, Nurse Forbes. It's certainly a pleasure, and we are delighted to have Nurse Anime Forbes serving as our health director of the Message of Hope Seventh-day Adventist Church. Thank you. You're doing a wonderful job. And I also want to thank those who have participated in the program today. The nurse who came to give us her personal experience on the fact that she had COVID and how she was able to overcome it. And of course, Dr. Alec, who came and made his presentation and answer our questions so ably. We just thank you for those who have participated and have given information so that we know how now to guard ourselves and to protect ourselves, our loved ones, and those who are around us. I just want to remind us that those who have sent in questions in the chat, we want you to know that we have noted those questions, and we will answer them next week or before the series is over. We will get to your questions. You can also send in your questions through our email address, which is mohnassau@gmail.com. mohnassau@gmail.com. And we also want to say that if you have any special prayer requests, or if you'd like to have Bible studies, we are here for you. And you can also put that in the email address, and we will get to you right away. We also want you to know that we are at this same Zoom ID. We're not changing it because we want to make it simple. Dr. Alec talked about making it simple and making it real. Well, we want to make it simple. Some people, you start with one ID and you end up with another one. No, we're not doing that. We're doing the same one so you can become familiar with it and you can have ease of access in getting to us. And so you can send us your email, you can send it in the chat, and we want you to know that we will be getting back to you. We're also trying to put together a kit, okay, what we call a COVID kit. I'm not sure if we will be able to get sufficient for everybody, but we will get some, and at the end of this series, we will be giving it out. So we want you to hang with us. We don't want you to start and fall by the wayside. Hang with us for the long run. And who knows, you very well at the end of the series may get a COVID kit. Then we want to remind you that next week, we're looking at nutrition. And we are going to have one of the top nutritionists in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas with us. And so if there was any meeting that you should have missed, which should have been this week's meeting. But next week, we're going to give you ideas on what you can eat to help to boost your immune system and to help to keep you safe from this COVID-19. And so be with us next week, Sabbath afternoon at 5:30, when you will hear from the nutritionist. We also want you to know that you can feel free to join us on Wednesday evening on the same Zoom number at 7 o'clock, and on Saturday mornings at 10 o'clock. Saturday mornings at 10 o'clock. Feel free to join us, and I'm sure that you will be blessed by the inspirational meetings that we have. And so I just want to say to all of you, thank you very much for being with us this evening. And I hope that you got the information which you came in search of, and that you would put them in place and that you use them so that you can have a healthy life. Thank you very much. Let us now bow our heads as we pray. Our righteous God and our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day that you have given to us. We thank you, Lord, for the blessings that we have received from morning up to this point. And we thank you, Lord, for those whom you have sent our way to make presentations this evening so that we can help to keep this body temple in a fit condition. Father, I just pray that you would continue to be with those who have presented, and especially for those in our frontline workers, those who really put themselves on the line every day they leave their homes, not knowing what they're going to encounter when they get to work. And so, Heavenly Father, I pray that you would just be with them, that you would protect them, that you would keep them and their families safe. And then help us all, Heavenly Father, to abide by the protocols that have been set down to help to keep us safe. Now, Heavenly Father, as we leave this platform and to go about our other business, I pray that you would keep us safe. Bring us back again on Wednesday night and then on Sabbath afternoon, where we would continue to give information to keep our bodies safe. In Christ's name I pray. Amen. And so have a good evening, everybody.